For 40 Christmases, the billionaire lived in silence, until the woman hired to help for the holidays heard something no one else ever had, the truth. Welcome back to Tales of the Fireplace family. Here, we share stories that remind us of one truth. Love and loss touch every soul, no matter who we are. We never know when, how, or why, but love always finds us, and its stories deserve to be told. If you're new here, subscribe and hit the notification bell so you never miss the moments that change everything. And to our returning hearts, thank you. Your presence keeps this fire burning. Stay with us till the end. Share your thoughts, and tell us where in the world you're watching from. Let us content. The mansion on Massachusetts Avenue glowed softly against the December night, its windows framed by white lights that blinked in quiet rhythm. Snow dusted the hedges like powdered sugar, immaculate and untouched, just like the man who lived inside. Benjamin Carter had spent 40 Christmases in silence. Not metaphorical silence. Not emotional quiet. Real silence. Absolute. Unbroken. The kind that presses against your chest at night and makes even wealth feel hollow. From the outside, Benjamin Carter was a legend in Washington, D.C. A reclusive billionaire whose investments shaped neighborhoods, whose donations quietly funded hospitals and schools, whose name appeared on buildings, but never in interviews. People called him brilliant, untouchable, cold. They never called him lonely. Inside his private study, Benjamin sat at his desk, a leather-bound contract open before him. His pen moved with precision, signing numbers that could change lives in an instant. Outside the window, carolers passed the gates, bundled in coats, laughter visible in the air as clouds of breath. Benjamin didn't hear them, but he watched. He always watched. The fire crackled in the hearth. He could feel the heat on his skin, see the flicker of orange light dance across the walls. Christmas decor lined the shelves, a tree trimmed in silver and gold, gifts placed neatly beneath it by staff who knew better than to ask who they were for. They were never for him. At his side stood Harold Whitman, his longtime estate manager, hands clasped behind his back like a sentry. Harold had been with him since his 20s. He spoke for Benjamin, interpreted for him, filtered the world. Harold believed he was necessary. And necessity, Benjamin had learned, was a quiet form of power. Benjamin slid the signed contract across the desk. Harold nodded, already preparing to deliver the news to the board in his own words, shaped by his own tone. That was how it always worked. Christmas staff arrives tomorrow, Harold said aloud, though he knew Benjamin wouldn't hear it. He placed the typed note gently on the desk instead. Benjamin read it. Nodded once. Seasonal help. Temporary. In and out. No disruption. That was the rule. Across the city, on the opposite side of the same cold December night, Naomi Brooks stood at a bus stop near Capitol Hill, rubbing her gloved hands together for warmth. Christmas lights hung from lampposts, uneven and imperfect. She liked them that way. Naomi was 31, black, and tired in the bone-deep way that came from carrying responsibility alone for too long. She had just finished her shift at a community center, where she helped seniors navigate paperwork they didn't understand and loneliness they pretended not to feel. Her phone buzzed. Temporary housekeeping position, private estate, immediate start, Christmas season. She stared at the message longer than she meant to. The pay was generous. The address made her eyebrows lift. She almost said no, but something tugged at her, a quiet nudge she'd learned not to ignore. Naomi had always been good at noticing things other people missed. A pause before a smile. A flinch behind confidence. Silence that wasn't empty, just unheard. She typed back, "I'm available." Snow began to fall harder as the bus arrived, doors hissing open. Naomi stepped inside, unaware that by this time tomorrow, she would walk into a house where silence ruled, and into a life that had been waiting, unheard, for 40 years. Before we go on, let me ask you something real. Do you believe silence always means peace, or can it hide something dangerous? Drop your thoughts in the comments. I'm reading every one. Naomi Brooks arrived at the Carter estate just after dawn. The sky over Washington, D.C. washed pale gray, snowflakes still drifting lazily from the clouds. The iron gates opened without ceremony, revealing a driveway so long it felt like it led to another world entirely. She adjusted her coat, squared her shoulders, and stepped inside. The mansion smelled like pine, polish, and something older, money that had lived a long time without being touched by warmth. Christmas decorations were everywhere, but perfectly placed, as if joy itself had been scheduled and approved. Harold Whitman met her in the foyer. He was tall, impeccably dressed, his smile polite but sharp around the edges. His eyes assessed Naomi the way people assessed furniture. Useful, temporary, replaceable. "You're Naomi Brooks," he said. "Not a question." "Yes, sir. You'll keep to the west wing, main floors, and study area. You won't disturb Mr. Carter unless necessary." Naomi paused. "Is he home?" Harold's smile thinned. He slid a small notepad into her hands. "Mr. Carter is always home. He is deaf. He does not speak. He does not require conversation." Naomi read it once. Then again. Something tightened in her chest. Not pity, but recognition. She handed the pad back gently. "Understood," she said. Harold frowned, clearly used to people responding without awkwardness. "Good. Let's proceed." Benjamin Carter was already awake. He always was. Routine was safety. Silence was predictable. He sat in his study reviewing reports when Naomi entered quietly with a tray of coffee. She moved differently than the others. No exaggerated caution, no tiptoeing like the floor might shatter. She placed the mug on his desk. "Good morning, Mr. Carter," she said naturally, warmly, as if he could hear her. "I made it how the note said. Cream on the side. And I added cinnamon. It felt like Christmas deserved that." Benjamin froze. Not because of the words, he couldn't hear them, but because of the way she spoke. People usually faced away when talking, or spoke loudly, mouths stretched unnaturally. Naomi didn't do that. She looked at him, directly, calmly, as if he were simply a man. He picked up his pen and wrote on his notepad. "You didn't need to speak." Naomi smiled, not embarrassed, not startled. "I know," she said softly. Then, realizing, she wrote back beneath his line. "I speak because silence doesn't mean absence." Benjamin stared at the words longer than he should have. No one had ever written something like that to him. She noticed his gaze linger and quickly added, a little sheepish, "Sorry. Habit. I talk when I'm nervous." He felt something strange then, a shift. Like when a room changes temperature without warning. Benjamin nodded once. Naomi returned to her work, humming quietly as she dusted shelves and straightened books. The sound was faint, more vibration than noise, but Benjamin felt it through the soles of his shoes, the desk beneath his palms. It unsettled him. Not unpleasantly, just unfamiliar. Later that afternoon, a courier delivered bad news. Another acquisition delayed, another complication. Harold relayed the information through notes, his handwriting tight, controlled. Benjamin's jaw clenched. The room felt smaller. Naomi entered with fresh tea just as Benjamin stood abruptly, frustration coiling through him like a spring wound too tight. He knocked into a side table, sending a crystal ornament wobbling dangerously close to the edge. Naomi reacted instinctively. "Careful." The ornament fell. It shattered against the marble floor, the sound sharp and sudden. Benjamin flinched. Actually flinched. The room went still. Harold turned slowly. Naomi's breath caught in her throat. Benjamin stared at the broken glass. Not at the mess, but at his own hands. His pulse thundered in his ears. Had he felt that, or heard it? He looked up at Naomi. For the first time, she saw something crack through his composure. Fear, confusion, and something dangerously close to hope. Naomi swallowed. Something had just happened. And whatever it was, it wasn't supposed to. If you were Naomi, would you question what you just saw? Or convince yourself it was nothing? Tell me what you would do in that moment. The sound of glass shattering replayed in Benjamin Carter's mind long after the pieces were swept away. He sat alone in his study that evening, the Christmas lights outside his window blinking in steady rhythm. His hands rested flat on the desk, palms down, as if grounding himself in something solid. It had been nothing. It had to be nothing. People reacted to vibration all the time. Sight, pressure, expectation. He had lived his entire life cataloging these explanations, trained by years of reassurance and repetition. Deaf meant deaf. Silence meant safety. And yet, he pressed his fingers gently behind his ear, searching for something that wasn't supposed to be there. Nothing. Still, his chest felt tight. Across the mansion, Naomi stood in the linen room folding towels she didn't need to fold again, her thoughts running in circles. She had replayed the moment a dozen times, trying to convince herself she'd imagined it. But she hadn't. She'd seen it in his eyes. That wasn't confusion alone. That was recognition. Naomi had worked with people long enough to know the difference between surprise and awakening. She'd seen it in seniors who suddenly remembered a name, in kids who realized they weren't as alone as they thought. What scared her wasn't the possibility that Benjamin Carter might have heard something. What scared her was what it would mean if he had. Harold Whitman noticed the shift immediately. He noticed the way Benjamin stared out the window longer than usual. The way his notes grew shorter, sharper. The way he paused, just a fraction, when noises happened nearby. Harold adjusted. That evening, he intercepted Naomi in the hallway. "You startled Mr. Carter today," he said smoothly, his voice polite, almost kind. Naomi stiffened. "I didn't mean to." "I'm sure," Harold replied. "But he thrives on consistency. Unexpected behavior can be disruptive. I was just doing my job." "Yes," Harold said. "And your job does not include engaging him unnecessarily." Naomi held his gaze. "Respectfully, sir, I didn't treat him any differently than I'd treat anyone else." Harold smiled, but it didn't reach his eyes. That's exactly the problem. Benjamin spent the night awake. Sleep wouldn't come. The mansion was too quiet, too aware of itself. He focused on small things. The hum of the heater he felt through the floor, the faint vibration of the wind against the windows. Then, something new. A distant, low thrum. He froze. It wasn't clear. It wasn't sharp. But it was there. His heart began to race. Benjamin stood, slowly, and walked toward the door. He placed his palm against the wood. The sensation deepened, like standing near a subway platform as a train approached. Sound. No, that was impossible. He stepped back, breathing hard, his mind scrambling for explanations. Fear won. The next morning, he handed Harold a note. Limit staff interaction, including the seasonal hire. Harold read it once. Relief flickered across his face. "Of course," he said aloud, already turning away. Naomi felt the change immediately. She was reassigned, moved to rooms far from Benjamin's study. Her shifts shortened, her presence minimized. She told herself it didn't matter. She told herself she'd imagined the whole thing. But then, one afternoon, as she passed the study to deliver a package, she caught Benjamin watching her, not guarded, not distant. Searching. Their eyes met. For a split second, Naomi raised her hand and tapped gently on the doorframe. Tap, tap. Benjamin's breath caught. He felt it. Clear as day. Not vibration. Not coincidence. Choice. Naomi's eyes widened. Benjamin stepped back, shaken, his mind screaming denial while his body betrayed him. This was dangerous. Because if silence wasn't real, then everything he trusted had to be questioned. And some truths, once heard, could never be unheard. If discovering the truth meant risking everything you thought kept you safe, would you want to know? Tell me, would you choose comfort or courage? Washington, D.C. woke under a blanket of snow thick enough to mute the city. By mid-morning, roads near Massachusetts Avenue were closed. Government buildings delayed openings. Staff who lived outside the estate called in, unable to make it through. The Carter mansion, for the first time in years, was understaffed. Harold Whitman stood rigid in the foyer, phone pressed to his ear, irritation bleeding through his carefully managed calm. When he hung up, he turned toward Benjamin with a tight smile and a notepad already prepared. Severe weather. Reduced staff. Temporary adjustments required. Benjamin read it slowly. Harold hesitated, then added beneath it. Naomi Brooks will assist in common areas today, only until conditions improve. Benjamin's pen paused. He nodded once. Naomi was halfway through making coffee when she realized she wasn't alone. Benjamin stood in the doorway of the kitchen, coat draped over his arm, snow melting slowly onto the tile floor. The space felt suddenly smaller, warmer, charged. She cleared her throat out of habit. "Looks like it's just us for a bit," she said softly, then smiled at herself and grabbed a notepad from the counter. "Snow's not playing around today." Benjamin watched her write, watched the ease in her movements, the lack of fear. He wrote back, "You don't seem uncomfortable around me." Naomi considered the words carefully before answering. "Why would I be?" He hesitated, then added another line. "Most people are." Her pen slowed. "Most people are uncomfortable with silence. I'm not." Something loosened in Benjamin's chest. They worked in parallel silence for a while, Naomi preparing breakfast, Benjamin reviewing emails on his tablet. Outside, snow continued to fall, sealing the mansion off from the world. Time stretched. Naomi began humming again, absent-mindedly. Not loud, just enough to fill the space. Benjamin felt it, gentle, rhythmic, unmistakable. He closed his eyes. For the first time, he didn't fight it. The power flickered once, then went out. The house settled into a deeper quiet, broken only by the wind pressing against the windows. Naomi stilled. Well, she murmured, then caught herself and wrote. Backup generator should kick in soon. Fireplace still works. Benjamin nodded, standing and gesturing toward the sitting room adjoining the study. They sat across from each other near the fire, the glow painting the room in gold and shadow. Christmas stockings hung untouched above the mantel. Naomi wrapped her hands around her mug. She studied Benjamin's face, careful, curious, guarded. Then she took a risk. She tapped her fingers lightly on the arm of the chair. Tap, tap, tap. Benjamin felt it. Clearer this time. Stronger. His breath hitched. Naomi didn't look away. Slowly, deliberately, she tapped again, then spoke at the same time, her lips forming the words carefully. Can you hear this? Benjamin's world tilted. He stood abruptly, chair scraping against the floor. The sound, hit him like a wave. Not sharp, not perfect, but real. He pressed his hands to his ears, panic and awe colliding in his chest. Naomi stood too, instinctively reaching for him, then stopping herself, giving him space. It's okay, she whispered, then wrote quickly. You're not broken, and you're not alone. Footsteps echoed in the hallway. Harold. Benjamin straightened, fear snapping back into place like armor. He wiped his expression clean just as Harold entered, generator hum returning behind him. All set, Harold said smoothly, eyes flicking between them. Benjamin nodded, his hands trembling just enough for Naomi to notice. Snow continued to fall outside. But inside the mansion, silence was no longer absolute. It was waiting to be confronted. If you felt something impossible begin to awaken inside you, would you hide it? Or face whoever taught you it couldn't exist? Tell me what you would do. The snowstorm lingered for 2 more days. By the second night, the mansion felt less like a fortress and more like a container, holding memories that had never been meant to surface. Benjamin Carter sat alone in his study long after midnight, the fire reduced to glowing embers. He hadn't called Harold. He hadn't written a note. For the first time in years, he wanted to think without interpretation. He reached into the bottom drawer of his desk and pulled out a leather-bound folder he hadn't opened since his 20s. Medical records. His parents' handwriting filled the margins, soft, looping letters full of care and certainty. For your peace. For your protection. The world is too loud. Benjamin's jaw tightened. He had accepted those words as truth for decades. They were easier than doubt. But now that sound had brushed against him like a ghost, those reassurances felt incomplete. Not lies exactly, but not the whole truth either. He traced the dates. Something stopped him. A procedure. Experimental. Never discussed again. His pulse quickened. Naomi hadn't planned to tell him anything. She paced the West Wing hallway, heart racing, rehearsing words she wasn't sure she had the right to say. She hadn't come to the Carter estate with an agenda. She hadn't known who Benjamin Carter was beyond headlines and whispers. But she knew what she'd felt, and she knew what she'd seen. Finally, she knocked. Benjamin opened the door himself. No notepad. No intermediary. Just him. They sat across from each other at the desk, the same place where power had been exercised for years without sound. Naomi clasped her hands together, grounding herself. I need to tell you something, she said quietly, then paused, swallowing, before writing it down too. I didn't imagine what happened. And neither did you. Benjamin's pen hovered before moving. How can you be so sure? Naomi reached into her bag and pulled out an old photograph, edges worn, colors faded. She slid it across the desk. A young woman stood beside a hospital bed, smiling nervously, a surgical badge clipped to her coat. My mother, Naomi said. She was a nurse. She worked in experimental auditory programs years ago. Not public ones. Private funded. Benjamin's breath caught. Naomi continued, her voice steady but weighted. She used to tell me about a teenage boy. Brilliant. Quiet. Wealthy family. They were terrified of the world hurting him. Benjamin stared at the photo. Why are you telling me this? Naomi met his eyes. Because she told me something else, she said. They succeeded. Partially. Enough that he could hear certain frequencies, under the right conditions. But his parents made a choice. She wrote the words carefully, deliberately. They chose silence over uncertainty. Benjamin leaned back, the room spinning. All those years. All those explanations. He wrote again, slower this time. Harold knows. Naomi didn't hesitate. Yes. The truth landed heavy between them. Benjamin stood and crossed to the window, watching snow swirl under the streetlights. His reflection stared back at him. Older now, sharper, fractured. I don't think they meant to trap you, Naomi said softly. But someone benefited from keeping things the same. Benjamin closed his eyes. He didn't need to ask who. He thought of every decision filtered, every voice borrowed, every moment of doubt dismissed as limitation. When he turned back, his hands were shaking, but his eyes were clear. For the first time, the silence wasn't comforting. It was accusatory. The house felt different after the truth was spoken. Not lighter, not heavier, just honest. Benjamin and Naomi fell into a rhythm neither of them named. There were no declarations, no dramatic confrontations yet. Just small moments that carried more weight than they should have. In the mornings, Naomi brewed coffee while Benjamin stood nearby, pretending to read emails while secretly watching her mouth form words. She spoke slowly now, not exaggerated, not careful, just intentional. Snow's letting up today, she said once, smiling. He felt it. A low hum, a vibration threaded with something new. Meaning. He wrote back. I think I like mornings now. She laughed softly at that, surprised. I'm glad, she said. Then added, quieter, you deserve to. They decorated the tree together that afternoon. Naomi climbed a small step stool, handing down ornaments wrapped in tissue paper, each one tagged in neat handwriting by staff who had never known who they were decorating for. Benjamin took one in his hands. A simple glass star. He wrote, I don't remember decorating trees as a child. Naomi paused, heart aching. Well, she said gently, we can fix that. She reached for his hand, not grabbing, not rushing, just offering. He let her. The contact was brief, electric, real. That evening, the fire crackled louder than usual. Benjamin noticed it immediately. Not clearly, not perfectly, but enough. He laughed without realizing it. The sound startled them both. Naomi froze, eyes wide. Did you? She began, then stopped herself. Benjamin pressed a hand to his chest, overwhelmed. His laugh had come out rough, unfamiliar, but undeniably his. He wrote quickly, almost messily. I felt it. The sound. Inside me. Naomi's eyes filled with tears she didn't wipe away. That's your voice, she said softly. It's been waiting. They sat close after that, not touching, but aware of each other's presence in a way that felt intimate without being invasive. Naomi told him about her life, about losing her mother too young, about learning to listen carefully because silence had often been louder than words in her own childhood. Benjamin told her things too, not all at once, but pieces, about watching people talk and never knowing if they were kind or cruel, about trusting Harold because it was easier than believing he could handle the world alone, about how loneliness felt safer when it was familiar. Naomi didn't interrupt, didn't correct, didn't pity. She listened. For a moment, just a moment, it felt like peace. Too quiet, too perfect. Benjamin did. Harold's gaze moved between them, sharp and calculating. He smiled, but it was brittle now. I see you're settling in nicely, he said. Benjamin felt the words like pressure, not sound. Harold stepped closer, lowering his voice. Mr. Carter, there are things we should discuss. Privately. Benjamin looked at Naomi. Something unspoken passed between them. He nodded, once, and stood. As Harold turned away, Naomi felt a chill that had nothing to do with winter. This calm wasn't permanent. It was borrowed time. Harold closed the study door behind them with deliberate care. The soft click echoed in Benjamin's chest like a warning bell. He stood by the desk, hands clasped behind his back, posture calm, controlled, too controlled. The fire crackled, louder than Benjamin remembered it being, but Harold's voice cut through the vibration like a blade. You've been confused lately, Harold said evenly. Distracted. Benjamin didn't reach for his notepad immediately. He waited. Harold continued. I've managed your affairs for 20 years. Protected you. Shielded you from chaos. And now a seasonal hire comes along, and suddenly you think everything you've built is wrong. Benjamin's jaw tightened. He wrote, I think I deserve the truth. Harold exhaled slowly, as if disappointed. The truth, he repeated, is that the world is not kind to men like you. It chews them up. I made sure that never happened. Benjamin felt the words more than heard them, felt the weight of ownership wrapped in concern. He wrote again. You decided what I could handle. Harold's voice sharpened. Someone had to. The room seemed to shrink. Benjamin stepped closer, hands trembling now. You kept information from me. You filtered my life. Harold's composure cracked, just enough. And look at you now, he snapped. Unstable. Emotional. Risking everything because a woman made you feel something you weren't meant to. That did it. Benjamin felt something snap. Not sound, not vibration, but certainty. He wrote, slowly, deliberately. You were never my protector. You were my gatekeeper. Harold laughed, a short, humorless sound. You think she cares about you? He scoffed. She'll leave. They all do. And you'll be left with noise and regret. Benjamin turned away, breath ragged. Behind the door, Naomi had heard enough. Not the words, but the tone, the tension, the way Harold's voice pressed through the walls like force. She opened the door without knocking. Stop, she said aloud. Both men turned. Harold's face hardened instantly. This is not your place. Naomi stepped forward, heart pounding. It is if you're lying to him. Benjamin froze. Harold rounded on her. You've done enough damage. Naomi looked at Benjamin, eyes shining with urgency. I never meant to hurt you, she said. But you needed to know you weren't broken. Harold seized the opening. There, he said sharply. You hear that? She's experimenting with your life. Playing hero. Benjamin's chest burned. Fear surged in, old, familiar, suffocating. He turned to Naomi, his hands shaking. Did you come here knowing this? Naomi hesitated. That pause, just a fraction too long, was enough. Benjamin's face fell. Answer me. Yes, she whispered. I suspected, but I stayed because. He didn't let her finish. The pain was too sharp, too fresh. He stepped back, riding fast, angry. You should go. Naomi's breath caught. I stayed because I care about you, she said, voice breaking. Because you deserve. Go. The word landed like a door slamming shut. Naomi swallowed hard, tears spilling now. She nodded once, dignity intact even as her heart shattered. I hope one day, she said softly, you realize silence was never what made you safe. She turned and left. Harold watched her go, victory flickering in his eyes. Benjamin stood alone. The mansion felt colder than it ever had. Because this time, the silence hurt. The mansion had never felt so empty. Benjamin Carter sat alone in the study, the chair across from him untouched, the fire burned low. Naomi's absence was louder than any sound he had ever felt. For years, silence had been his shelter. Now it felt like punishment. He replayed the moment again and again. The hesitation in her eyes, the way his chest tightened, the fear that surged before reason could catch up. Fear had always been his first language. Fear had kept him obedient, manageable, safe. But safe for whom? Benjamin opened his laptop and pulled up records Harold had always handled. Passwords came easily. He had approved them all, after all. He dug deeper this time, past summaries and polished explanations, into raw documents and archive correspondence. Patterns emerged. Fees that didn't align. Contracts rerouted. Decisions he didn't remember authorizing. His hands shook, not from confusion now, but clarity. He realized something terrifying and freeing all at once. Harold had not controlled him because he was deaf. Harold had controlled him because Benjamin had believed he needed permission to live. Benjamin closed his eyes and leaned back. The memory of Naomi's voice surfaced, not the words, but the intention, the steadiness, the respect. You're not broken. The lie he'd lived with his whole life cracked wide open. He stood and walked through the mansion without calling anyone. Past the tree, past the gifts, past rooms filled with decorations meant for no one. He stopped in the hallway outside Harold's quarters. For the first time, Benjamin knocked. Harold opened the door, surprise flashing across his face before settling into irritation. This can wait, Harold said. Benjamin didn't write. He spoke. The sound was rough, uneven, barely formed, but it was unmistakably his. No. Harold froze. Benjamin swallowed, pushing through the fear. No more. The words echoed, not perfectly, but powerfully. Harold's face drained of color. Benjamin turned away before Harold could recover. He didn't need to hear the excuses. He didn't need interpretation. The choice had already been made. That night, snow fell softly again. Naomi sat on the edge of her bed in her small apartment, coat still on, suitcase half-packed. She told herself she'd done the right thing. Truth didn't always come with gratitude. Her phone buzzed. An unfamiliar number. She almost didn't answer. Almost. Naomi. Her breath caught. Benjamin, she whispered. I'm sorry, he said slowly, each word deliberate. I was wrong. Tears spilled freely now. You don't owe me anything, she said. I owe myself, he replied. And I want you. Silence followed. Not empty, not cruel. Full. Come back, he said. Not because I need you. Because I choose you. Naomi closed her eyes. Then she smiled. I'll come, she said softly. But this time, we walk forward together. If facing the truth meant admitting you were wrong, would you have the courage to choose differently? Tell me, what choice would you make? Christmas morning arrived quietly. Snow rested on the Carter estate like a blessing finally allowed to land. Inside the mansion, the lights glowed warmer than they ever had, no longer decorative, but lived in. Benjamin Carter stood in the foyer, hands clasped in front of him, heart pounding harder than any boardroom negotiation ever had. He wasn't waiting for staff. He was waiting for Naomi. When the door opened, cold air rushed in, and with it, her. She wore a simple wool coat, scarf pulled high, eyes bright and cautious all at once. For a moment, neither of them moved. Then Benjamin took a step forward. Merry Christmas, he said. The words were still rough, imperfect, but unmistakably his. Naomi laughed through tears and crossed the distance between them. She didn't rush him, didn't grab him. She rested her forehead gently against his. Merry Christmas, Benjamin. The silence between them felt different now. It felt chosen. The reckoning came swiftly after. By New Year's Eve, auditors were in place. Independent interpreters, legal counsel, and financial investigators uncovered years of quiet manipulation. Harold Whitman was dismissed publicly, his name stripped of reverence, his actions exposed. He tried to justify himself. He always had. But this time, no one translated his excuses. Benjamin testified using his own voice, measured, halting, but resolute. The room listened harder because of it. The story shocked Washington. The silent billionaire speaks. Power, control, and the cost of silence. But Benjamin wasn't interested in headlines. He was interested in rebuilding. With Naomi at his side, not behind him, not beneath him, Benjamin restructured his empire. Salaries were corrected. Hidden contracts dissolved. Ethics replaced convenience. And then, quietly, he did something no one expected. He opened the Carter Center for Accessible Communication in D.C., a space for people navigating disability, control, and unheard truths. Scholarships followed. Programs funded. Voices amplified. Not out of guilt, out of clarity. On Christmas night, they sat by the fire together, stockings finally filled. Naomi handed Benjamin a small box. He opened it carefully. Inside was a simple ornament, a glass bell. He looked at her, questioning. It's not about the sound, she said softly. It's about the choice to ring it. Benjamin smiled. He reached out, took her hand. I didn't lose 40 years, he said slowly. I found this one. She squeezed his hand. And this one matters. Outside, church bells rang faintly across the city. Benjamin didn't hear them perfectly, but he felt them. And this time, that was enough. If you discovered the silence in your life wasn't protection, but control, would you have the courage to break it and choose love anyway? What would you rate this story from 0 to 10, and where in the world are you watching from? Drop your country in the comments. Let's build a global community rooted in kindness, love, and second chances. If this story touched your heart, please subscribe and share it with someone who would enjoy it too. Your support brings us closer to our 1K subscriber milestone and fuels our mission to create more emotional stories centered on resilience, healing, and Black excellence. Thank you for being part of this journey with us. Your presence truly matters.